there really might not be a more disappointing team in basketball so far this season than the Phoenix Suns. And the reason that I say that is because this is a team that, unlike a lot of the other squads that have been disappointing in Minnesota and Sacramento and other teams like that, I'm sure we can name several more, a lot of those teams at least have assets to try to build towards the future. The Suns kind of have what they have, and it's not good enough. And that's a serious problem for a roster that has no first round picks available to trade. Really, as far as I'm aware, no second round picks available to trade either. They just don't have very many assets whatsoever to try to improve their roster, and their roster is clearly not good enough. And say what you will about injuries, KD's missed a good chunk of the season, all that. 15-15 in a tough Western Conference is not acceptable. And yes, I know they didn't have Devin Booker tonight, and I'm a Mavs fan. I think this Mavs team is good, but Mavs didn't have Derek Lively all night. Luka obviously didn't play. He's out for a while. PJ Washington and Najee Marshall get ejected in the third quarter and didn't play the rest of the game. And those were the two best guys physically to match up with KD. And yet, besides KD, this Suns roster just did not succeed tonight. KD's 11 and 19, 3 or 4 from 3. The rest of the team combined goes 21 for 64, so less than 33%. And then goes, 10 for 31 from 3, less than 33% there as well. Really inefficient, unimpressive offensive performance. $50 million man Bradley Beal is 5 of 18, 1 of 9, 1 of 5 from 3. Just quite simply not good enough. Really, besides KD and Royce O'Neal, they got almost no positive contributions from anybody else in this roster tonight. I mean, I guess Josh Okogie was okay. But you look at this team, there are a lot of holes. There are a lot of question marks, and there are clearly a lot of underperformers and underperformances so far by this Suns team this season. Before we break it down more, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Uploading every single day, trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. We'd really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, I think number one, the biggest issue for this team is they don't have a good center. Yusuf Nurkic sucks, plain and simple. He does, and also he's a dirty player. That's beside the point. But was not a fan of him sucker punching and trying to slap Najee Marshall tonight. And yeah. Clearly, Najee and PJ weren't cool with that either. Point being, not only is he not a great guy, but he's clearly not a great player either at this point in his career. Nurkic has been a massive negative for the Thunder this year. He's tried to expand his range and shoot more threes, but he's a 29% three-point shooter. He's not hyper efficient inside the paint like you want an interior big to be. He's a good rebounder, yes, but I don't think he's quite as physical as he used to be. He lost some weight to try to gain mobility defensively, but he's still not a high-level defender. He doesn't block a ton of shots. He's not a really impressive threat at the rim defensively. There's just not, in my opinion, a ton of positive about Nurkic's game at this point in his career for the Suns, regardless of my personal frustrations with him as a player right now, or as the things that he has done on the court recently. And maybe I should take my own frustrations out of that when I discuss it. But he's been bad. Plain and simple. I don't think there's any other arguing that. And honestly, Mason Plumlee is nothing more than just a depth big at this point in his career. He's not a guy that I think you really want to put on the court and put a lot of trust and reliance in as a playoff caliber big. Oso Ighodaro has had a decent rookie year, but I mean, I think he might be a little more promising than Nurkic and Plumlee at this point, but he's not at all a guy that I would count on in a playoff situation either. And so again, when you look at this team, what is the positive about their bigs? They don't have any. Kevin Durant's the best big guy on the team, and he's clearly not a big man. I mean, you're putting a lot of stress on KD on a night-to-night basis on a guy who's, 37 years old at this point, is still a great player. I mean, I don't want to take away from KD at all, but he's almost 37. He's averaging 27 a game. He's having an awesome season, as per normal, hyper-efficient, typical elite Kevin Durant stuff. But there is such a strain and such a load on him on a night-to-night basis, both offensively and defensively at this point in his career. And it's the type of stuff that I think has to be just absolutely terrifying if you're a Suns fan, because we've already seen him get injured twice this year. If he gets injured again, I mean, they can't afford to lose Kevin Durant for an extended period of time. And we all know that he has had significant injury issues over the past few years. There's just a lot to be concerned with Kevin Durant in terms of the risk of potential injury. And when he is your best and most important player, it's a really scary situation to be. I think their point guards are okay. I think the additions of Tyus Jones and Monte Morris were definitely good additions, like guys who are 100% contributors to this team. And yet at the same time, neither of those guys are elite top tier PGs that I think are going to be really, really reliable scorers come playoff time. I guess you could make an argument that Tyus, with his really good assist to turnover ratio, he's averaging 6.4 assists to 1.1 turnovers, 13 points a game at 44% from three. Like, his numbers have been really good and he's been a great addition to this team, and yet it doesn't mean enough. Monte Morris is just not a threat offensively at this point. Another guy who's not going to turn the ball over much and not going to make a ton of mistakes. But again, he's not a real threat offensively. And that, again, is a serious issue. And you just look at all the different holes and all the different issues on this roster, and it's hard to see a path towards serious contention. Booker's awesome, but his efficiency's been down this season. There's no doubting that. He's still having a good year, but he's not a hyper efficient, incredibly elite, like best of the best player in the league. He's a very good player, but I think he might be a little bit, again, they're asking a lot out of him on a night-to-night basis, and they're asking a lot out of Beal too, who efficiency-wise hasn't been bad, but doesn't provide a ton of defense, not really a great playmaker, turns the ball over too much for how much of a playmaking he really does. Their big three's good, but not unbelievable, and the roster around it simply is not good enough. Ryan Dunn started off the season shooting amazingly from three, and they really needed him to be a great offensive player, or a capable offensive player for them, because of the defensive value he provides. But again, I think that's a tough situation at this point for him as well. He's a rookie. You're asking a lot out of a rookie who was not a good shooter at all in college and has struggled to shoot the ball this season after obviously an early hot stretch. There's so many question marks. They don't have a lot of elite point of attack defense. They have no big man depth whatsoever. And when you look at the numbers, they're just an average team. Like, they are ninth in offensive rating, which isn't bad, but isn't super elite. They're 23rd in defensive rating. That's just gross. A net rating that is 17th in the league and negative. And again, when you look at the Western Conference, the Thunder are elite. The Grizzlies are a really good team. The Rockets have also proven to be a really good team. The Mavs are probably the second best team in the conference when they're healthy. And again, even with Luka out, they're 7-2 without him this season. They're not going to all of a sudden fall off the cliff with Luka injured for a while. The Lakers have played much better as of late. Winners of, I believe, like 4 out of their last 5. Clippers are looking really solid. And not only are the Clippers looking good, but the Clippers are about to get Kawhi Leonard back in the near future. The Nuggets still have Jokic. They're not great, but Jokic is going to make them good automatically. Timberwolves have struggled massively and are still better than the Suns to this point in the season. The Warriors, I don't know about the Warriors, but I feel like they're a team that they have the assets to make moves and try to improve their roster in a way that the Suns don't have. And the Spurs have Wemby and are starting to look better and better. Are they elite yet? No, but they're good. The Suns are not just going to waltz into the playoffs this year at all. I think they'll be a play-in team, 100%. But I'm not certain that they'll be a playoff team. There is going to be 3 of these 11 teams left out of the playoffs, and I'm pretty confident it's not going to be into the top 4. So between 5 and 11, 3 of those 6 teams are going to miss 3 of those 7 teams are going to miss the playoffs. I wouldn't be totally stunned if that's the Suns. And for a roster that has gone all in, has almost no assets to truly build for the future, and is reliant on aging stars like KD, Brad Beal, even Booker, who isn't exactly aging, but isn't in his super youth anymore either, this could very quickly turn into a roster that just collapses. And we could pretty easily, if things don't go better for the Suns this season, I think we could see a really dramatic shift in this team's long-term perspective this summer if things go downhill, where guys get traded. There's attempts to accumulate assets with this roster. But besides KD and Booker, I'm not sure they have many guys that are really going to garner them very many assets. And KD's getting older. Booker, I don't think they want to trade him. Like, they're in a tough spot, and I just don't see I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for the Suns team. I feel like their experiment, or their gamble, I should say, has basically failed, is what it's looking like for the Phoenix Suns. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.